Hey friends, in this video, we are going to be solving the data seeding quest. This is one of like the hardest quests in the Wilco catalog, if not the hardest. And we are going to go through the solving processes step by step to be sure that we don't leave out any critical detail. So let's get started. So next, as want us to run /start_quest.sh, which is what we always do. So let's do that. Let me zoom in a bit so we can see everything properly. So the next thing is let's create a new branch called dataseeding. So we switch to a new branch called dataseeding. Now next thing is you need to respond next with done. So let's respond next with done. So now that it says done, the next thing we need to do is to so next says in anything, almost all our features revolve around data. The database contains registered users, items, and comments, and much more. You can't test your code when your database is empty than the office fridge after the unfortunate incident. So go ahead and add a single item to the database, then get to its page in the system to continue. So let's do that. So I already have Docker running. So you might not be using Docker on local, you might be using your code space. So all you just have to do is to go to the front end URL in your code space and you'll be fine. So the next thing I will need to do is to add an item. So let's say test item. Let's say this is a test item. We don't need tags. Let's just click on publish. So if we go back here, we can see our item here, which looks okay. Now, the next thing is to go back to what next is. The next is, okay, you have an item in the system. That's fantastic. But why you put as your choice? Never mind the motto. Well, so next is, I have various. So when I had to pick between having you see the data with users, items, and comments manually using a script, I went for the script. Now, the script file is the sh in the backend directory right now, waiting for you to implement it. So let's look for it. In the backend directory. So script. So sorry, seed.sh. Yes. So it's now waiting for it to implement. So go ahead and implement it right away. The script should connect directly to database and see it with 100 users, 100 products, 100 comments. Oh, wait, there's a note here with some details. You should run the script on the backend container using docker exec-it anything backend node once I don't open the API. So the next thing we want to do is to write the script. So we're going to go to our save.js file and start writing the script. Now, the first thing we need to do is that we need Mongoose, right? We are going to use the Mongoose library to be able to, interact with our MongoDB database because we are directly seeding items database. So the first thing we're doing is to require Mongoose. Mongoose require then Mongoose. Next thing is, since we're using Mongoose, right, we need to we have a bunch of schemas, right, models that model what our database look like. So we have comments, item, user. So we need to be able to manipulate these files directly. So we need to require them, already import them. So require /models/user, then require. Same thing for items, same thing for comments. /model/item can require /models/comment. So while we are doing this, right, since we are going to be using these, so we're going to be using this particular library, we need to be sure that we are using it correctly, right? So next thing is we need to initialize this model as a standalone, instance. So we can do that by running, by writing the following declare expression plus item is equal to mongoose dot model item. Then same thing for comments, mongoose dot model comments. Then var user, same thing for user, mongoose dot model user. Now, the good thing about this whole thing is that we are basically going to be checking for. So the next thing we need to do rather is we need to connect to our MongoDB database. So we can do that as mongoose.connect. So let's do this. Let's make a right check. So if the MongoDB, no, let's just connect directly. So let's do if the MongoDB, because we're going to connect to the database. So MongoDB underscore URI. If it's available, right? Then we run mongoose.connect and we do process.env dot MongoDB URI, right? Else, we want it to run else if it's not available, we want to do console.run missing MongoDB URI in env. In the env. So this basically is we want to check. So if process.env, let's not make this mistake. So the env MongoDB URI is available, then we should run mongoose.connect process.env.mongodb URI, right? We should connect. Well, if it's not available, we want to throw a warning that says MongoDB URI missing MongoDB URI in the environment. Now, the next thing is, so this helps us to connect. So let's just add this, connect to MongoDB. Connect to MongoDB, which is great. So next thing is, we need to create user IDs for our user. We also need to create item IDs for our item. So item ID. So we will use this in the code as as we go forward. Now, the next thing is to write our function that actually seeds the data into the database. So it's going to be an asynchronous function. So let's call it seed data. Let's call it seed database. Right? It's not going to take any parameter because we want to run it immediately. Then let's also invoke the function seed database. Of course, since it's going to be an asynchronous function, let's return a promise. Then right, then callback function, a callback function that basically exits the process if it works. But if it doesn't, we want it to it doesn't, we want it to return an error. So .catch, which is basically going to take in error, then do a console.error, and it runs the error, then we do an exit, process exit. Because we don't want it to keep on running, we don't want it to be stuck. We want the once the email the script has been run, we want it to just exit it immediately, whether it fails or it works. So the next thing now is the next thing we need to do now is to create the items, right? The 100 users, the 100 products, and the 100 comments for our database. So let's start with users, right? It's pretty much very straightforward, right? We just need to create an array. So array.from. So from that array, we need to create an array of thanks to the JavaScript array method that allows us to create an array straight up, initialize array with any amount of items that we want, objects that we want. So let's say we want 100, like Ness said. So the next thing is, once we've done that, we want to map through it. And we want to map through every single item and give it some certain features, right? Some certain properties rather. So every single user in the database has a couple of properties. They have username, they have email, they have bio, they have image, they have role, and they have favorites and following. So we're going to give that to every single user. Each of the 100 users will have those properties, which is why with the JavaScript map function, you can map through every single array, every single item in an array, and give it or make whatever operation you want to do. So that's exactly what we're going to do. So we're going to map with the item. So we're going to map every item based on their index, right? Then so next up, we want to give it a username, every single item a username, right? We can call them fake user based on their ID. So we want them to have their index number attached to them. So let's put I here. So next thing is to give it an email, give everything. So let's do fake user. So let's pass in their index number also at anything.com. It can be at any and whatever you want. Actually, I just gave you anything.com because it seems cool. Then for bio, we want to give it test bio because I mean it's just a test. Then for image, just give it a random image. I want every item to have an image, so let's use an image generator API. So pick some photos /200, right? So it's going to generate a new image every single time we refresh. That's what picsum does. So user, don't forget to put the trading comma or else you get errors like I'm getting right now. So next thing we need to do is to give it the favorites, which is also an array, but it's going to be empty because we don't need that for now. Then following, which is also an array of users, also going to be empty. So the next thing we would be doing is to make sure that we save these particular items in the database. So let's do that, right? So we're going to use the for loop. So for every single user of users, so every single user in the database, right? We want to create a new user object. So we want to create a new user. So let's call it new user, right? Then pass in the user ID. So then we need to save the user to database. So let's call it DB item, which will now be equal to await, since already it's a asynchronous function. Use.save. So save is the Mongoose method that allows us to save the MongoDB database. You can check it out on their documentation. So we also need to check, that if a user ID is not available for a user, we want to just automatically give the user ID, make the user ID to be the DB item, the ID in the database of the item saved. So we want to give it DB item. This is just to make sure that there is no clash or there's no error. So let's say ID. And this is the first thing we need to do for our items, for our users. Now, the beautiful thing about this is we are basically required to do exactly the same thing for products and also for comments. So it's pretty much the same ideology. We just need to specify the property. Pretty much the same. So this is why I said it was very straightforward. So let's do the same thing for items. Right? Let's do the same thing for, we did user already. So let's do the same thing for items. So cons items. So we can pretty much just copy and paste and change the variables, but just to be on the safe side, let's write it down from scratch. So array, the same array, I will create an array, create an array of 100 items before. So array method 0, 100. Then we want to map through the array with index every single item in the array. And underscore item, comma I. Then we want a callback function that runs when we've mapped to it. So we're going to basically pass. So every single item has a couple of properties. Slug, you can give whatever properties that you want, but it has slug, title, description, image, comments, tag list. So how can we know that, right? So let's go to our ISO locals 3000 /API/items. So as you can see, every single item has a slug, a title, a description, an image, and a tag list, and a seller. So we have to replicate exactly how it looks like here, right? Since that's exactly what the API specification is. I think we can also do for users, right? No, I think it's user. Yes, for user, no authorization token was found. I mean, of course, we need some authorization tokens here. So let's see for comment. Okay, so we basically need items just for now. We need items. So for items, we need items for now, right? So we need to replicate exactly the same structure for our items. So let's do that, right? So we have a slug for it. So let's call it pick item, then pass it out. This is basically the same ideology we've always used. Then for title, we want to give it pick item because it has every single item has a title. So pick item, then pass it this is what they call template literals. If you're not familiar with template literals, it allows you to make certain functions, operations inside strings, right? It allows you to manipulate strings. So for description, we want to give it test description, right? Then for image, of course, we're just going to replicate the same image that we have above. So let me just copy this here. So we want to just replicate the same image here. Then for comments, we want it, because every single item has a comment section. So we want it to be an empty array. Then tags, tag list, right? Just like we saw in the API specification. We want to give it, let's just give it test. Let's also give it tag, right? I mean, anything you really want. Then seller, of course, should be the user ID that we specified earlier, right? So this is it. The next thing we need to do, like we've done for before, is to save the items. So a for loop for item of items, we want to, for every single item in items, we want to create a new item. So new item. Then we also want to save the item to the database. So db item equals to await. Basically the same procedure. it.save. Right? We also need to check for the ID just to be sure that we are doing things correctly. We also need to check. So if there is no item ID, last time it was user ID, now it's item ID. So item ID would be, of course, db item underscore ID. Right? So let's be sure that's exactly what we did here. User ID, item ID. So we're going to replicate exactly the same process for comment. So of course, comments. So if you check the item we created earlier, right? Every single comment has the body, right? This is the body, right? It has a seller attached to it, right? So, and that's the item it's in. So that's what we need to replicate, right, for the API specification. The body, the seller, and the item it's in. So let's do the same thing. So comment, so array.from, basically the same method, array, let's give it 100, map, then underscore item, then same thing. Then we pass it body. So this is a pet body, right? Then we pass it a seller, which is going to be the user ID. User ID. Then the item itself, which is also going to be the item ID. Right? So we need to save it to database, same way we've always done it. So for comments, we want to create a new instance of the comment. So let's do C is equal to new comment, then comments. Then we want to save it, right? So await c.save. That's pretty much it. Since we don't need to do since we don't need to actually use an ID for each comment, we don't need to do that here. So this function would invoke our function when we run it in the bash script as a script. So let's do what next is, right? So let me go over exactly what has been done here. So let me go over what exactly has been done here. So this script basically is using the Mongoose library, right? It's using the Mongoose library to interact with a MongoDB database. It is creating 100 users, 100 fake users, 100 fake items, 100 fake comments, and save them to the database. So we are basically feeding the database, hence the name dataseeding. Now, first, we will require the Mongoose library. This shouldn't. So first, we require the Mongoose library and 3 files: user, item, and comment, which they basically define the schema for each of these models. Now, we then create instances of the user, item, the item, and the comment models. And then we connect to the MongoDB database, right? We basically make a check that if MongoDB URI is available, then you should do a MongoDB mongoose.connect. Else, you should do return a warning missing MongoDB URI. Now, the next thing is we then defined some global variables, user ID, and item, unassigned global variables, item ID and user ID. Then the next thing is we created a function. We created a function known as tick database, which basically helps us to create an array of 100 user objects, 100 comments objects, and an array of 100 item objects, and then save them to the database using the MongoDB, using the mongoose save method, which is this method here. Now, the script here, we are then calling the save database here method here, and if the save is successful, we would exit the process. If it's not, we would console error that error and then also exit the process. But the point is we are basically exiting the process. So that's basically what this script does, right? It's basically what we've done so far. So let's see if it actually works. So let's to execute the script, we need to go into our the backend container, then cd into backend. Then the next thing we need to do is to run ./seed.sh. Mongoose is not defined. Mongoose is not defined. So why is mongoose not defined? So let's do that again. First mongoose is equal to require mongoose, right? Then right, just to make sure that we are doing this the right way, it says in number 812 mongoose, import mongoose. Okay, so let's see if this works, right? So the script runs, but it says validation error. What is taken? It says username is taken, email is already taken. So let's just add this anything, then fake users, right? So let's do this and see if this works, if this saves the issue, right? So this should sort out the issue. And voila, it works. So to confirm that the script ran successfully, let's go back to anything market, and we should see at least 100 items here. So we have fake item 99, 98. We have down to 0, also with our first item. Then we have fake users. We have fake item. We have tags, test and tag. We have So we have all of this, right? Which is pretty much good. We also have follow, we basically defined exactly how it should be. So this is pretty much how to solve the data seeding test quest. So let's make a push and see if Nest approves it. So let's just do an exit. This is how to leave the exit. So exit. So the next thing we need to do is to do a git add dots. So let's do npx prettier dash write dots, just so every single thing is done correctly. So where are we having issues here? Sorry. Let's disregard all of the changes prettier did. So let's discard all of the changes prettier made, because we should have run it inside the backend folder and not inside this folder. So let's leave the one for seeds.js, then we can disregard others. Discard others, rather, because we do not need it. Right, so let's discard this. So let's go into the backend folder We run npx create that's right. We do a cd back, then do a gs. So let's do a git add. Let's just take exactly only just what we need right now, which is the cd.js file. This is only what we need right now. So let's do git status again and see which of them has been staged. Okay, so right now, let's also add the backend folder, right? Backend git status. So let's do git commit -m. I like to link my files whenever I'm working, when I finish working on them, just to be sure that I meet the proper specification and it's pretty beautiful and that person can work on it. So add data seeding script, right? So git push origin data seeding. So we can just copy this link. Let's just paste it here. So for the description, we can just write add data seeding script, then create pull request, and we wait for the verdict. So what does next say? So wait and see. So fingers crossed that it works. It works on local, should definitely work in production. Should definitely work in production. So let's make sure our checks are running properly. Oh yeah, our check runs completely well. So yay to us, we solved the data seeding query. So let's merge. Let's see what next says before we merge. So next, wonderful. Looks like there's some records in your local DB. Now you can merge the PR and get ready for your next assignment. So let's merge the PR, confirm merging, and voila. We have finished solving data seeding quests. Thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, please drop it in the comment section and see you next time.